Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, inshallah, we are going to complete Chapter 5. And we will complete also the exercises related to Chapter 5, right? Before going to the exercises, let's derive the formula of the aggregate equilibrium level of income, right? As you know, that if we have a government and we work under the closed economy, C equals A plus beta YD. YD is the disposable income, right? So C equals A plus beta times Y minus T, right? At equilibrium, the aggregate output equals the aggregate expenditure, or Y equals C plus I plus G, right? Let's do a substitution of C here, right? So Y equals C is A plus beta times Y minus T, right? So a plus I plus G. Tamam? We are going to derive Y, the aggregate level of income or output, from this formula. So Y equals A plus beta times Y, beta Y. Beta plus beta times minus T minus beta T. صح؟ plus I plus G. هلا الاشتقاق هذا مش مطلوب منك، بس الفاينل فورمولا اللي بنستخدمها هو المطلوب. تمام؟ So Y minus beta Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T. صح؟ So equals A plus I plus G minus beta T. Now let's derive Y. So Y is خد عامل مشترك هان بصير Y times 1 minus beta equals A plus I plus G minus beta T. So Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T كله over 1 minus B. This is the formula of the equilibrium level of aggregate income or aggregate output. تمام؟ Yes, this is the formula. And the deriving هذا مش مطلوب بس الفورمولا مطلوبة. Right? So let's take an example or exercise to understand or to apply this formula. Right? Suppose that we have the following information about an economy and امسح هذا هيك. Just you have to know the formula بس. In this example, as you see, the formula is C equals 100. C equals 100 plus 0.75 YD and I, the planned investment, equals 100. The government spending equals 100 as well. Right? What else? The taxes equals 100. Right? The question is, calculate the equilibrium level of income. We have two ways to calculate the aggregate income or the equilibrium level of income. The first one, so we are going to use these two methods or approaches or formulas to calculate the equilibrium level of income or output. The first one, which is Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T over 1 minus B. هذه اللي اشتقناها لقيت. So let's use it. So in this case, so y equals A equals how much? 100 from this formula, صح؟ من المعادلة هاد A equals 100 plus I 100 plus G 100 minus beta T. Beta is the MBC, which is 0.75. 0.75 times T, the tax, equals how much? 100 is given. So, over 1 minus B, 1 minus 0.75, right? So, let's calculate Y. So, Y equals 100 plus 100 plus 100 equals how much? 300. 300 minus 75 over 1 minus 75, 0.25. So Y equals قديش هدول؟ 225 over 0.25 equals how much? So 900. This is what? The equilibrium level of aggregate income. هاي شايفينه؟ انت 900 صح؟ طيب, let's use the another formula, which is, as you know, that at equilibrium y equals aggregate expenditure. مش تعلمنا هيك؟ So when y equals aggregate expenditure, this means that y equals C plus I plus G. Right? صح? So y equals C is the formula 100 plus 0.75 y d plus I equals how much? 100 plus G 100. صح؟ So y equals جمع هدول هيك 100 100 100 300 plus 0.75 yd is y minus t. T equals how much? 100. صح؟ مظبوط. So y equals 300 plus 75 0.75 times y قديش؟ 0.75 y. صح؟ minus 0.75 times 175. مظبوط. رحل y عند y. So y minus 0.75 y equals how much? 300 minus 75, 225. So 1y, 0.25 y equals 225. So y equals what? How much? 225 over 0.25 equals the same result, $900 million. So it's easy. If we would like to calculate the aggregate level of income or the equilibrium level of income, it's easy to use this formula direct. Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T over 1 minus P. صح? What about if there is no government? If there is no government, how could we calculate the aggregate level of income? عطول subtract اللي هو G will minus beta T. That's it. بتصير شو الوضع? If there is no government, the equilibrium level of aggregate income equals A plus I over 1 minus P. That's it. So if we work under the closed economy and we don't have a government, there is no government. In this case, the equilibrium level of Y of income equals A plus I over 1 minus P. This is the equilibrium level of aggregate income or aggregate output. But if we have a government, Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T over 1 minus P. تمام؟ صعب الأمور شباب ولا مين أعيد له طيب؟ طيب Let's complete the exercises related to chapter 5. Okay, now let's go to the exercises, or to complete the exercises related to chapter 5. As you see, the economy of banana land can be characterized as the equation of C equals 2000 plus 0.75 YD, and the taxes, government spending, and investment, the planned investment, are given, right? The question is, calculate or derive the value of the equilibrium level of income. As you know that, to calculate the equilibrium level of income or aggregate output, Y equals A plus I plus G minus beta T over 1 minus B. صح? Direct. So Y equals A in the formula equals 2000. As you see, this is A. So 2000 plus I 500 plus the government spending 400 minus beta T. Beta is the MBC 0.75 times the taxes 200 over 1 minus B 0.75. So Y equals how much? 2,900 minus 150 over 0.25. صح? Which equals 2,750 over 0.25 equals how much? قديش اللي هاي؟ 11,000 ها؟ So the answer is B. Right? صعبة؟ طيب. Calculate the consumption and saving at equilibrium. The aggregate consumption and aggregate saving at equilibrium. Saving or consumption equals C equals 2000 plus 0.75 YD. So C equals 2000 plus 0.75 times Y. The equilibrium level of Y is 11,000 minus taxes. Taxes 200. So C equals 2000 plus 0.75 times how much is it? 10,800 صح? So C equals 2000 plus اعملوا لي ضرب سريع على الآلة 0.75 times 10,800 قديش هذا؟ قديش؟ So it equals to exactly 10,100. This is the consumption at equilibrium. How much is the saving in this case? Exactly. It equals YD minus C. So let's calculate the aggregate saving at equilibrium. Aggregate saving, as you know that saving equals Y minus C minus T when we have a government. So S equals Y, the equilibrium level of aggregate output equals what? 11,000 مظبوط 11,000 minus the consumption 10,100 minus the taxes 200. So the saving equals how much? قديش؟ كيف 700 يا راجل؟ هيو 11 اوكي تمام. Yes, YD minus C is only Y minus C minus T, right? Now calculate the government spending multiplier. The government spending multiplier. امسح هذا هي. Okay. So let's calculate the government spending multiplier. The government spending multiplier equals 1 over MBS. صح? Which equals 1 over 0.25 equals 4. That's it. قديش التاكس multiplier? Tax multiplier equals minus MBC over MBS equals minus MBC minus 0.75 over 0.25 equals minus 3. How much is the balance budget multiplier in this case? The balance budget multiplier equals the summation of the government spending multiplier and the tax multiplier. صح? So it equals 1. 4 minus the 3 equals 1. It's always 1. صح? Now suppose that the government spending declined by $90 million. Suppose the government spending declined by $90 million and the taxes increased by $100 million. How much is the new equilibrium output? Or the change in the equilibrium level of income. قديش اللي change في equilibrium level of income. هذا السؤال. So the question is, suppose إنه government spending declined by $90 million, right? And the taxes increased by $100 million. Calculate the change in the aggregate level or the equilibrium level of aggregate income or aggregate output. عطول, we have to calculate the effect of government spending, the effect of tax, right? And then we have to derive the final result or the final change of the aggregate output. So the first case, delta y over delta g equals 1 over MBS. So delta y over delta g minus 90 equals 1 over MBS 0.25. So delta y equals minus 90 times 1 over 0.25 equals how much? 90 في 4 36 minus 360. صح? This is what? Delta y g. What about the delta y t? Delta y over delta t equals minus MBC over MBS. So delta y over delta t increasing by $100 million. So it would be positive 100 equals minus 0.75 over 0.25. So delta y equals 100 times minus 0.75 over 0.25. So delta yt equals minus 75 over 0.25, 300 minus. So how much is the change in the aggregate level of income? قديش مقدار التغير؟ summation تبع هذا وسمي مع هذا. So delta y, the final delta y equals delta y g plus delta y t. So which equals minus 360 minus 300 equals how much? Minus 660. This is what? The change in the equilibrium level of income. So in this case, if the government declined its spending by $90 million and increased the taxes by $100 million, the final result would be a reduction in the aggregate level of income by how much? Exactly. Right? تمام؟ طيب. Okay, let's go to this diagram or figure, and let's go to the exercises or the following exercises. As you see in this figure, this is the aggregate expenditure function, and this is the aggregate income or aggregate output. صح? Where is the equilibrium? How much is the equilibrium level of income? Exactly, when there is intersection between Y and aggregate expenditure. In this case, the aggregate level or the equilibrium level of income is $500 million. تمام؟ قديش autonomous expenditure? 300, exactly. So, is it easy to derive the aggregate expenditure function? طبعا. So, let's derive the aggregate expenditure function. أخذناه؟ والله؟ هلا حنسأل على المالتيبلاير والجفرمنت سبيندينج مالتيبلاير والتاكس مالتيبلاير. يمكن مركب عليه هذا الشيء. Okay. The same, okay. But we have يعني other questions في نفس السؤال هذا في أسئلة تانية فرعية. طيب. Okay. So let's derive the aggregate expenditure function, and then let's answer the questions that follow. The aggregate expenditure function equals 300 plus the MBC times Y, D. MBC is equals how much? This distance over this distance. قديش هاي المسافة؟ 200 over 500 قديش؟ 200 over 500 exactly 0.4 YD. صح؟ طيب. Refer to the figure. At equilibrium, the autonomous planned expenditure equals how much? قديش الautonomous? Exactly. The expenditure multiplier or the government spending multiplier is how much? The government spending multiplier. Yes, exactly. So the government spending multiplier equals 1 over MBS. This is the government spending multiplier. 1 over 0.6. صح؟ هذاك ال MBC اللي بيساوي مظبوط. بس ال government spending multiplier 1 over MS marginal propensity to save. قديش هذا بيطلع؟ ايه؟ 1/6 قديش؟ 1 point قديش؟ 1 point قديش؟ اوكي. طيب. What about the tax multiplier? Tax multiplier minus MBC over MBS equals how much? 0.4 over 0.6. قديش هذا بيطلع؟ الرقم تمام. Sorry. مش مشكلة قديش يطلع. طيب, let's go to this example or it's followed. Now suppose that the government spending increased by $40 billion and the equilibrium level of output increased by 200 billion. The government spending multiplier is how much? يعني السؤال بيقول إنه we have the increasing in the government spending or delta G equals 40, right? And delta Y increased by 200. Delta Y equals 200. The question is, the multiplier or the government spending multiplier equals how much? This is the question. Government spending multiplier شو هو? Delta Y over delta G. That's it. صح? So, the government spending multiplier equals delta Y over delta G. تمام بس أنا مش معطى عندي ال MBS ولا ال MBC وبالتالي I have to use the given information. So equals 200 over 40 equals 5. This is the government spending multiplier. صح؟ طيب. Assume an economy is in equilibrium at output level of 1,500. If the government spending increased by $2 million, then the output level of 1,500 billion, there is what? هذا بلاش منه. Tax multiplier MBC. Okay, tax multiplier MBS. Let's go to this exercise. So as you see, the taxes are reduced by $70 million and income increased by 280 billion. The value of tax multiplier is how much? Exactly. So we have a decreasing in taxes, delta T equals minus 70, and delta Y increased by, this is the decreasing, increasing and increasing. The value of tax multiplier, yes, 280 positive. The tax multiplier equals what? Delta Y over delta T, which equals positive 280 over minus 70 قديش؟ minus قديش؟ 4. صح؟ صح ولا لا؟ أيوه minus 4. So A is the answer. طيب. What about okay, if the tax multiplier is minus 3, so the tax multiplier equals minus 9, and the taxes are decreased by 100 billion. So delta T equals minus 100. How much is the change in Y? Delta Y or tax multiplier equals delta Y over delta T. Tax multiplier is minus 9 equals delta Y over minus 100. So delta Y equals minus 9 times minus 100 equals positive 900. Yes, so the output would increase by $900 million, right? Okay. Yes. Okay, if the government spending multiplier is 10, then the tax multiplier equals how much? So the question is, the government spending multiplier equals 10. Government spending multiplier equals 10. Then the tax multiplier equals how much? This is the question. كيف عرفت؟ Exactly. As you know that the government spending multiplier and the tax multiplier. Exactly. Government spending multiplier plus tax multiplier must equals 1. اللي هو الميزانية المتوازنة مظبوط ولا لا؟ So 10 minus tax multiplier equals 1. So tax multiplier equals 10 minus 1 equals 9. Or we can use another. Is it easy to derive the MBC and then derive the tax multiplier? طريقة تانية يعني. Another way to answer this question. Exactly. We have to derive the MBC and then the tax multiplier, صح? So let's use another way, another method or approach to answer this question. As you know that the government spending multiplier equals 1 over MBS. صح? So the tax multiplier is 10. or the government spending multiplier 10 equals 1 over MBS. So MBS equals 1 من 10 0.1 صح؟ قديش ال MBC؟ 0.9. So let's derive or calculate the tax multiplier. So the tax multiplier equals minus MBC over MBS. So T tax multiplier equals minus 0.9 over 0.1. How much is it? minus 9. طبعا هذه لا لحظة هنا بالماينس مفروض انه الشغل تبعنا. هذا راح حلها هيك. Yes, a plus. So it should be negative here. مظبوط. هذا minus 10 plus 1 equals minus 10 9. هيك تمام. So this is another way to answer this question. طيب, if the tax multiplier is minus 8.42, then the government purchases multiplier, the government spending multiplier is how much? هذا السؤال. يعني معطينا التاكس multiplier بيساوي هالقد والgovernment spending multiplier بده اياه. The same. The government spending multiplier plus the tax multiplier must equal 1. طيب, وبالتالي the government spending multiplier plus the tax multiplier must equals 1. So the tax multiplier is minus 8.42. The government spending multiplier equals 1. So the government spending multiplier equals 1 plus 8.42, 9.42. Yes, so the answer is B. صح؟ حاضر. As you know that the government spending multiplier plus tax multiplier equals how much? 1. It's always 1. تمام؟ في إطار قانون البالانس budget multiplier. صح؟ طيب. In this case, the tax multiplier equals minus 8.42. تمام؟ So, and the government spending multiplier is required. مطلوب هذا. هاي الإيكويشن اللي بدي أشتغل عليها. The government spending multiplier plus tax multiplier equals 1. مظبوط؟ direct substitution. The government spending multiplier تنزل plus minus اللي هو tax multiplier صح؟ وبالتالي the government spending multiplier minus 8.42 equals 1. عملت ترحيل للهاي بتصير plus. طيب, if the government spending is increased by 300, the government spending is increased by 300 and the taxes decreased by 300. أخذنا زيه بالضبط هذا والMBC is given. Calculate the the output will change by how much? تمام. If the government spending is increased by 550 and taxes are increased by 550, the equilibrium level of income will what? Decrease, will increase by قديش? No. Delta T. Delta T. So the government delta T or delta G equals how much? Positive 550. Delta T equals positive 550. And the MBC طبعا مش معطيني لا MBC ولا MBS بس احنا عارفين we know that increasing في الجي by 550 increasing the taxes by the same amount, Y would increase by the same amount. صح؟ Yes, it's a theory. وهذا the same. عند decreasing بالgovernment spending by $800 million و decreasing the taxes by $800 million, the output, the aggregate output would decline by the same amount, 800 million. Spending increased, okay. Which one? هاي؟ حط ال MBC أي حاجة. Suppose that MBC equals 75, 0.75. طيب. Yes, Muhammad. So as you see, the increasing the government spending by, suppose, 550, increasing taxes by 550, it's always, or this leads to increasing the aggregate output by 550. تمام? To make sure, suppose that MBC equals 0.75. Suppose, إنه ال MBC equals 0.75. تمام? Calculate the change في ال aggregate output. Let us suppose, or let's use the government spending multiplier. So delta Y over delta G equals 1 over MBC. تمام? So delta Y over delta G increasing 550 equals 1 over 0.75. Right? So delta Y equals ضرب تبادل 550 over 0.75 equals قديش؟ ال sorry MBS MBS 25 thank you. تمام؟ قديش هذا بيكون؟ 2200. تمام؟ هذا this is delta YG. تمام؟ let's do, or it's positive here, delta Y over delta T equals minus MBC over MBS. So delta Y over delta T increasing by positive 550 equals minus 0.75 over 0.25. تمام? So delta Y equals حصل ضرب هذولا اللي هو ماينس قديش؟ حدا يعملها الآلة سريعا؟ ايش 3؟ 550 times 0.75 over 0.25. قسمهم على بعض شوف قديش الرقم اللي طلع times 4. طيب قديش السميشن تبع هذول؟ بس so the summation delta Y equals delta YG plus delta YT, so it equals to 2200 minus 1650 بس. وضحت؟ اوكي. Okay, so let's come back to the chapter. We have some definitions. We have to pass quickly on these terms. On this page, as you see, when we add the international sector for the formula, as you know that in general, the equilibrium occurs when Y equals aggregate expenditure, صح? The equilibrium in general occurs when Y equals aggregate expenditure, right? And if we have a government, Y must equal C plus I plus G. And if we have the international sector in this in the country, and we have export and import, we should add the international sector to the formula. Net export or X minus M, right? طيب. X export, M imports, صح? طيب. Export is injection. صح؟ والimports is leakages. مش هيك أخذنا؟ بس هاي بدكم تعرفوه في الموضوع هذا. كل هاي الصفحة بتحكي عن هيك. يس.
كله عشان هذه بس؟
يس.
طب الحين الاكسبورت أولها إيه؟
EX. Okay. Okay. طيب the federal budget الموازنة الحكومة الفيدرالية is the budget of the federal government. The difference between the government receipts and its expenditure is the federal surplus or deficit. الفرق ما بين اللي بتستلمه الحكومة وما بين اللي بتنفقه هذا الفائض أو العجز. Federal debt الدين للحكومة is the total amount owed by the federal government. The debt is the sum of accumulated deficit minus surplus over the time. تمام. The cyclical deficit العجز الدوري في الموازنة is the deficit that occurs because the downturn in the business cycle. During the recession, during the recession, the government may face a cyclical deficit. في فترات الريسيشن فترات الركود. But the structural deficit اللي هو العجز الهيكلي في الموازنة is the deficit that remains at the full employment. حتى في حالة full employment we have a deficit. Which one? زي عندنا for the Palestinian government we have a structural deficit. It depends on the different problems, the structural problems in the economy. That's it. يعطيكم العافية إن شاء الله.